In episode 21 of the CySec101 series, we are going through the basics of cryptography, and we have now started a new module in the Cybersecurity 101 pathway of TryHackMe. And this module is the cryptography module, which is a very, very exciting module because this is where we get into encryptions and the variety of different decryption or hacking abilities. For example, John the Ripper. It's all very, very exciting. I actually love John the Ripper. It's probably my favorite tool when it comes down to cracking passwords, so on and so forth. So very excited about this particular room and this particular module. We're going to go through a variety of different tasks here, and most of them are lecture based. So there's the intro, the importance of cryptography, plaintext to ciphertext, historical ciphers, types of encryption, basic math, and of course the summary of this. And then there's a few tools that I'm going to give you as well. And that'll be it for this one. I think it's going to be a fairly quick video, but it is a very important video because everything has to do with encryption and cryptography in the modern world that we are in today. If you'd like to support this channel, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous, the premier channel for security professionals and hackers. We have 4 tiers: the supporter, agent, guardian, and master. And each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. However, the agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every single month, plus much, much more. And to join, you can join simply using the link in the description below, or you can go to our homepage and click on the join button, or you can go to youtube.com/@hankhackshackers/join, and then you'll be able to join Hackaholics Anonymous. Now, without further ado, let us jump into the cryptography basics room. Alright, you may or may not have wondered how things are protected online and really how information has been protected for God knows how many centuries now. We have these in the modern era, right? You have third parties that are trying to read your messages, or how your app and web browser builds a secure channel with a remote server, basically meaning a connection to a different computer which is serving the data that you want. For example, when you log into your bank account doing online banking, how is that conversation, how is that connection secured, right? And by secure, we meaning no one can actually read or alter the exchange data. So nobody can actually read your login information when you get into your bank. Nobody can, you know, when you try to transfer money between 2 accounts, no one can actually put their account number and transfer money into their account instead of your account. And also, we're making sure that we're actually connecting with the real server instead of somebody's dummy server. That has happened very, very frequently over the last couple of years with these phishing campaigns becoming much more elaborate and sophisticated. So all of this is done to cryptography. And this is how we can ensure that these conversations and these connections are actually secure. So cryptography lays the foundation for our digital world. While networking protocols have made it possible for devices spread across the globe to communicate, cryptography has made it possible to trust the communication. And this room is the first of 3 introductory rooms that we're going to be going through all of these things inside of the cryptography module that we're in right now. So we're going to cryptography basics today. In the next episode, we're going to go through public key cryptography basics, and then we're going to go through hashing. And in the 4th room, or the 4th module, or 4th room inside of the module is going to be the John the Ripper. So if you are not sure, you can go through pre-security, and there are several videos that we already did on pre-security for the beginning of the CySec 101 series. So all of those is also available to you as well. So the learning objectives for this video is going to be cryptography key terms, the importance of it, Caesar cipher, which is the very first cipher, standard symmetric ciphers, and then common asymmetric ciphers, and then basic mathematics commonly used in cryptography. And all of this is really, I mean, if you're a nerd when it comes down to math and cryptographs, you know, how you can create secret messages and ciphers and all of that stuff, how to decode messages from the ancient world. If you've ever seen any movie about Indiana Jones, for example, Indiana Jones is a good one, and really any other type of movie where they're like, hey, we need the cipher so we can decode this or decrypt this. That's all this this entire module is about. So it's actually really, really fun if you're a nerd like me. But if you're not, this might not be fun. I think it's fun. I don't know. I'll try to make it fun for you. And that's basically it. Those are the goals that we have for this video, for this room. So we are now going to actually go into the first portion of this, which is the importance of cryptography, which is a very, 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 very important subject in the world that we live in today. The ultimate purpose or goal of cryptography is to ensure that secure communication is taking place in the presence of adversaries, because adversaries are everywhere. These are just newbies that are getting into hacking to people who are super advanced and they really know how to do some serious damage. Secure includes confidentiality and integrity of the communicated data. We talk about confidentiality, integrity, and availability inside of the CIA triad, inside of the Security Plus training series that was just launched. So that's also another one of those really good ones that if you're planning on being in security for a while, you should at least study Security Plus. Even if you don't want to get the certification or anything, you should be aware of all of the philosophies and concepts that are in it. And then cryptography can be defined as the practice and study of techniques for secure communication and data protection where we expect the presence of adversaries and third parties. In other words, these adversaries should not be able to disclose or alter the contents of the messages, or they should not be able to see the contents of the messages, right? It's used to protect confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity. And in this age, you can use cryptography daily, or you do use it daily. You're almost certainly reading this over an encrypted connection, which I am, and you're probably watching this over an encrypted connection, because if you're watching it on YouTube, which you are, then this is happening through an encrypted connection. Consider the following scenarios where you would use cryptography. So when you log into TryHackMe, or when I log into TryHackMe, or if you have an account with TryHackMe, whatever, your credentials are encrypted and sent to the server so that no one can retrieve them by snooping on your connection. So when you log into anything in the modern era, this is what's happening. Your credentials are encrypted and then they're sent to the server so that no one can retrieve them by snooping on your connection, basically just watching your connection, right? And this is with your email account, it's with your bank account, it's with the random shopping account, Amazon, for example. Anything that you use these days, it should be encrypted using HTTPS so that nobody can actually get your login credentials and see what you're doing, right? When you connect over SSH, which is secure shell, your SSH client and the server establish an encrypted tunnel so no one can eavesdrop on your session. And then when you conduct online banking, which we talked about several times, your browser checks the remote server certificate to confirm that you're communicating with your bank's server and not an attacker's server, which is a really important one as well. When you download a file, how do you check if it was downloaded correctly? Cryptography provides a solution through hash functions to confirm that your file is identical to the original one that you were trying to download. So you rarely have to interact directly with it, but its solutions and implications are literally everywhere in the digital world, and pretty much everyone is on the digital world. I mean, literally, my mother, who is now a grandmother, uses Facebook and like all these things on her phone, and she comes and shows me these things, and I'm like, dude, how did you even learn this? Like, it's so interesting to me that this 70-something-year-old lady is now like, she is stuck to her freaking iPhone, and it drives me crazy because she's on her phone more than I am. And I'm like, yo, can you just get your face out of your phone for a second and like talk to me? So, but anyways, when handling credit cards, the company must follow and enforce the PCI, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, which is a very big one. In this case, PCI DSS ensures a minimum level of security to store, process, and transmit data related to credit cards or card credits. If you check the PCI DSS for large organizations, which is the standard link actually, yeah, so this is actually the documentation that they have. It's a 37-page document, and it basically shows you all of the standards that are required for large organizations to protect payment card information. You'll learn that the data should be encrypted both while being stored, which means being at rest. It's not being transmitted anywhere. And while being transmitted, which means it's in motion. In the same way that handling payment card details requires complying with PCI DSS, handling medical records requires complying with their respective standards. Unlike credit cards, the standards for handling medical records vary from one country to another. Example laws and regulations that should be considered when handling medical records include HIPAA, which is a really big one for hospitals and insurance companies and basically anything that has to do with health information. There is HITECH, which is the Health Information Technology for Economic and Clinical Health, which is basically the tech regulation for HIPAA. And then we have GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, which is any European citizen that goes online. What doesn't matter what website you visit, it could be a US-based website. Their data needs to be protected, which is why GDPR is pretty much enforced on every single website, because you never know when somebody in the EU is actually going to be looking at your website. So you have to abide by it just in case they do. And then we have DPA, which is the Data Protection Act in the UK. And then there's state specific in the United States for California and New York and all these places. So there is a lot, right? So this list that we see is not the exhaustive list because there are so many freaking regulations. It just gives you an idea of all the the legal requirements that healthcare providers should consider depending on their country and so on and so forth. So these laws and regulations show that cryptography is a necessity that should be present, yet usually hidden from direct user access. So just to give you an idea here, just to kind of show you what it actually looks like. So if we zoom in up here, I do this regularly, right? So if you go to any website and you click on this little button right here, this is on Chrome, so this is what it looks like. But if you click it, or if I just click on this, you'll see that it has HTTPS, which means it's actually encrypted because it's the secure version of HTTP. And then when I click on this, I can actually verify the connection of my browser to TryHackMe's web server by clicking on that. And then over here, you can see that the certificate is valid. And then we come here, and then now we can see that this is, the certificate has been issued to these guys. It expires on Tuesday, March 24th of 2025. So it looks like they have it every quarter, basically, or every 4 months, it seems like. And then this is the certificate hash, SHA-256 hash print. And then this is the public key for the certificate here. And these are technically encryptions, right? So hashing algorithms are another way to say that things are being encrypted. And what's nice about it is that you cannot unhash something. You can't dehash something. You can only do it if you actually had the original value of something. But this is how we verify our connection with the website for TryHackMe, right? So they have a public key. I get a private key because this is an asymmetric encryption, and we'll be talking about this in a little bit. And my private key to be able to access this website is my username and password, right? So when you have asymmetric, there's always a public key that the website has, and they have it to verify that this is who they are, and this is our certificate authority, and so on and so forth. They have that. And then this is the certificate's hashing algorithm so that it verifies the actual certificate itself as well. And then there's the private key. So the private key is what is used to decrypt, I guess, or to be able to access the resources of this web server. And if you want to do it, you need to be able to do it with either using a secure browser, which what Chrome does, and Chrome allows you to have a private key, and that's generated from your actual computer or from your device. So that's one way of certifying who you are. But then when you have a username and password, that serves as another key that allows you to access the more the private, like all the stuff that's actually inside TryHackMe that you need a user account for. So there's levels to this, right? So what is the standard that is required for handling credit card information, which is PCI, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS. And that's what we got for this question. So now let's go to plaintext to ciphertext, which is essentially encryption. That's what that means. Plaintext to ciphertext means encryption. Plain text is a generic term. It's like a blanket term that we use to refer to any kind of readable data. So it could actually be, a hello message. It could be a picture of a cat. It could be credit card information. It could be medical health records. It's essentially anything that is viewable or readable. And plain text is all-encompassing. It's basically a term that applies to all of those things, okay? From cryptography, this means, plain text refers to anything that's waiting to be encrypted. Now, the plain text is passed through the encryption function along with a proper key, right? And the encryption function returns a ciphertext. And the encryption function is a part of the cipher. A cipher is an algorithm to convert plain text into ciphertext, and then vice versa. So you have the person sending their plain text. It goes through the encryption function. There's a key that's attached to it that is used to decrypt it so that once it turns into ciphertext, so basically the plaintext and the key goes in through the encryption, ciphertext is generated. But then if you have ciphertext and you want to decrypt it, you use the key and then you decrypt it, and then it turns back into plaintext, which is the cat photo or the contents of the message or you actually logging into your bank account, whatever, right? So to recover it, we just go through the whole thing. I jumped ahead, but we would use ciphertext as well as the key. It goes through the decryption and then it turns into plain text and it gets to the recipient. That's basically what that does. So now we have several key terms that we need to kind of go over so you really understand what's going on. So plain text is the original readable message or data before it's encrypted. It could be a document, an image, multimedia file, or any other type of binary data, or really any other type of data that has not been encrypted yet. Cyphertext is the scrambled, unreadable version of the message after it's been encrypted. We cannot get any information about the original plaintext except its approximate size. That's basically all we get. The cipher is the algorithm or method that converts the plaintext into ciphertext and then back again. The cipher is usually developed by a mathematician, okay? The key is a string of bits that the cipher uses to encrypt or decrypt the data, okay? And then we're going to be talking about what encryption and decryption basically means. But the process of turning something into ciphertext from plaintext is encryption, and then the process of turning it from ciphertext back into plaintext is decryption, okay? So the key is what we use to turn it to either encrypt it or decrypt it, basically. It's more important for decryption than it is for encryption, but when you use asymmetric encryption, the key must remain secret unless it is the public key, which is an asymmetric encryption, which is what you saw when I just looked at the certificate for TryHackMe. But your private key, because there's keys, right? So there's the public key and then there's a private key. So the private key needs to be private, as the name implies. Like, people should not be getting your username and password, basically. So we will visit this in a couple of tasks here. And encryption is the process of converting it into ciphertext. Decryption is the process of converting ciphertext back into plaintext, basically. And then we have what do you call the encrypted plain text, which is ciphertext. Very good. We're making good progress here. What do you call the process that returns the plain text? That is decryption. Okay, cool. Now, historical ciphers. This is where it gets kind of interesting. I mean, I think it's already interesting, but this is where it gets kind of fun to think about it historically. So cryptography is actually something that goes way back. This is ancient Egypt is the earliest reference to this. 1900 BCE, which is a long freaking time ago. It's millennia. Not millennia is a million years, I think. So is it 1,000 years? Whatever, thousands of years ago. I feel like millennia is 1,000 years ago. Anyways, one of the it is 1,000 years ago. Okay, my mind is now running away. Okay. I'm not going to check it because I don't want to go down these freaking rabbit holes, but I believe it's millennia ago. However, one of the simplest historical ciphers is the Caesar cipher. And the Caesar cipher dates back to the 1st century of BCE. The idea is very simple. You just shift each letter by a certain number to encrypt the message, and then you would tell the person that, you know, we shifted it by these many numbers, and then that would be their key to decrypt the message. So let's say the plain text is TryHackMe. The key is 3, so it is a right shift of 3. And this is the cipher, the Caesar cipher, which means what? So T will become W if you shift right. So T, then the next one is U, then you have V, and then you have W. So T, if it shifts to the right 3 times, becomes W. R becomes U, Y becomes B, and so on and so forth, right? So if it's Z, then it would be A, B, C would be the replacement for Z. You just basically continue going, right? So you're moving forward. Essentially, that's what it means to assume that you're shifting right, you're moving forward. This is the very most basic version of ciphers, which is the Caesar cipher. So what happens here is that TryHackMe then turns into this. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. That's basically what it is, right? So that's what TryHackMe will turn into. And this is what it looks like, right? So A would shift, so A would shift to the right, and then it becomes D. And then B would shift to the right, and it becomes E. C would shift, and it turns to F. You get the idea, right? So this is what the basic ciphertext Caesar cipher encryption looks like, right? So to decrypt it, you would say, hey, this is the ciphertext. Your key is 3, and now you need to go to the left, right? Because we went to the right 3 times. So now you need to go to the left 3 times, which means what? D goes to the left and it becomes A, right? E goes to the left and it becomes B. F goes to the left and it becomes C, so on and so forth. That's what the most basic cipher, Caesar cipher, looks like. So we shift to the right by 3. For decryption, we shift to the left by 3. And then as illustrated in the images that we saw, if someone gives you a ciphertext and tells you that it was encrypted using Caesar cipher, recovering the original text would be a trivial task because there are only 25 possible keys, meaning that, okay, shift to the right 24 times and then shift to the left 24 times. It's like, that's basically it, because the English alphabet is 26 letters, and that's basically it. If you shift 26 times, A becomes A, right? So that's that's literally the only thing that you can do. So it's a fairly easy cipher to decrypt now. So the figure below shows how decryption will succeed by attempting all of the possible keys. In this case, we recover the original message with key equals 5. Consequently, by today's standards, where the cipher is publicly known, Caesar cipher is considered extremely insecure. Insecure is just like an understatement. So this is it, right? So this is the original, this is the ciphertext, and the decryption is 5 in this case. So key 1, if it moved by 1 position, that's what it would turn into. If it moved by 2, 3, or 5, 5 is where it actually lands. And you see this is Alpha Bravo contacting Tango Hotel Mike, right? That's basically it. So Alpha Bravo contacting THM, TryHackMe, right? And then key 6 turns back into jargon. So this is not difficult to decrypt here. So you would come across many more historical ciphers in movies and cryptography books. The Vigenere cipher from the 16th century, the Enigma machine from World War II, the one-time pad from the Cold War, and these are all interesting stories. If you're even remotely fascinated by this, doing a YouTube search for these ciphers will be an interesting little side project for you, and you'll get some cool little stories that goes with it. So knowing that this is our ciphertext, using this, what is the original plain text? So we don't have, what's the hint? What's our hint? It says online tools such as the ones available at crypty.com pipe Caesar cipher, and then this cipher. Okay, so we'll just use this one, and then I guess we can actually just use an automated tool. If you also know, if you know basic scripting, you can actually just write a script that will shift one letter, or like it'll create essentially a attempt at decryption by shifting one at a time, and then ultimately you'll get your response. So Caesar cipher has a bunch of different websites right now, so we don't need to do all of that. So all we can do is we can just go and copy and paste. What's going on? Let me go and paste it. Can I pay? There we go. Okay, so Caesar cipher, and then you have this right here, and then it says to encrypted, and then what do we get? And it doesn't give us the key, so we have to kind of mess around with this when we're decoding. And then this is what we get over here. This is the alphabet, and this is the plain text. The key is 7 here. So this is what I can do. I'm just going to go to 1, and then we're going to pay attention to the plain text, right? So, okay, so we were able to pull that off. All right, so here we go. We have a shift of 1 will end up being this. Shift of 2 is that 3, 4, 5. Let me see, 4. No. 5, 6. I'm just going to keep clicking until I find it. Okay, so there we go. It was a shift of 22 to the right, and it is I can encrypt is the message that we got here. And that's basically it. That was like not complicated to do. You know what I'm saying? So there we go. That's all we got. And then we're going to go over here and we're going to click on that, and boom. And there we go. I can encrypt. That is the correct message. So let's move on to the types of encryption. There are 2 main categories of encryption, and one is symmetric, the other one is asymmetric. So these are the categories. We're not talking about the individual types yet. These are categories of encryption. And then under symmetric, there's going to be a variety of different types of symmetric encryption, and then same thing for asymmetric. So symmetric is also known as symmetric cryptography, and it uses the same key to decrypt and encrypt data. So encrypt and decrypt, and then vice versa, as shown in the figure below, which we will see right here, right? Keeping this key secret is a must. It's also called the private key cryptography. Furthermore, communicating the key to the intended parties can be challenging, as it requires a secure communication channel, and maintaining the secrecy of the key can be a significant challenge, especially if there are many recipients. The problem becomes more severe in the presence of a powerful adversary. Consider the threat of industrial espionage, which happens quite frequently. Okay, so typically what it's like is that if you're using symmetric encryption to encrypt something, and then it requires a private key to be transferred to the other party, what you would end up using is using asymmetric encryption to transfer the private key, because it'll end up securing the communication channel, and that ends up being an asymmetric encryption channel. And then that asymmetric encryption allows you to transfer the private key, and then the other person, the recipient, uses that private key to decrypt the message. Okay, so this is what it looks like over here. We have Alice being the sender. It has plain text using the shared secret key to encrypt it, and it turns into ciphertext. Then the ciphertext is sent to Bob, and then the shared secret key is this is like the most crucial element of this whole process, is that shared secret key that is used to decrypt the message, and then Bob gets the plain text. That's basically symmetric encryption in a nutshell. So where you created a password protected document to share it with your colleague would be an example. You can easily email the encrypted document to your colleague, but most likely you cannot email them the password. The reason is that anyone with access to their mailbox would access both the password protected document and the password. Therefore, you need to think of a different way. For example, a different channel to share the password. Unless you think of a secure, accessible channel, one solution would be to meet in person and communicate the password to them. So this is how you become like really careful when you're transferring secret documents, right? Examples of a symmetric encryption are the data encryption standard, and then the triple data encryption standard, and then the advanced encryption standard, which are very, very common, and we talk about this a lot inside of the Security Plus training series that we just did. So DES was adopted as a standard in 1977. It uses a 56-bit key, and then the advancement of computing power in 1999, DES key was successfully broken in less than 24 hours, motivating them to do triple DES, which is essentially just 3 multiplied by this, right? The key size is 168 bits, although the effective security is 112 bits. 3DES was more of an ad hoc solution when DES was no longer considered secure. It was deprecated in 2019 and should be replaced by AES. However, it may still be found in some legacy systems, and AES is the standard since 2001, and its key size could be 128, 192, or 256 bits, and this is all symmetric, right? There are other more symmetric encryption ciphers used in a variety of applications, so we are not going to be talking about them because they are not the standards, but there's a lot of different symmetric encryptions that exist. Asymmetric, which is the opposite of symmetric, it uses the same key for encryption and decryption, so there's no longer a private key at this point. It uses a pair of keys, one to encrypt and the other to decrypt, as shown in the illustration below. To protect confidentiality, asymmetric encryption or asymmetric cryptography encrypts the data using the public key. Hence, it's also known as public key cryptography. And so in this case, Alice has the plain text. There's Bob's public key, so Bob's public key, that is used to encrypt the data, the plain text that Alice is trying to send. And then that turns into ciphertext, and then the ciphertext combined with Bob's private key is used to decrypt the message, and then Bob actually gets the plain text. So RSA is the Diffie-Hellman elliptic curve cryptography, and these are two keys involved in the process referred to as a public key and a private key. The data encrypted with the public key can be decrypted with the private key. Your private key needs to be kept private, hence the name. Asymmetric encryption tends to be slower, and many asymmetric encryption ciphers use larger keys than symmetric encryption. For example, RSA uses a 2048-bit, 3072-bit, and 4096-bit keys. 2048 is the recommended minimum key size. Diffie-Hellman also has a recommended minimum key size of 2048, but uses 3072 and 4096 for enhanced security. On the other hand, ECC can achieve equivalent security with shorter keys. For example, with a 256-bit key, ECC provides a level of security compared to the 3072-bit RSA key. Okay, so ECC is the elliptic curve cryptography, and then RSA is the basic one. You'll see a lot of RSA keys that we'll decrypt or we'll get access to when we do rooms like the John the Ripper rooms and a variety of other rooms as well. The RSA keys are common keys that you'll see, but there's also elliptic curve cryptography, which, as we saw with the example right here, it is the superior method of cryptography, because with a 256-bit key, you will get the security level that is comparable to a 3072-bit RSA key. Asymmetric encryption is based on a particular group of mathematical problems that are easy to compute in one direction but extremely difficult to reverse. In this context, extreme difficult means practically infeasible unless you actually get to quantum computing, which apparently seems to be like a really big deal now. For example, we can rely on a mathematical problem that would take a very long time, millions of years to solve using today's technology, but again, quantum computing is making it much easier to do those things, which means that encryption is going to become even more advanced than what we're seeing over here. So just imagine that obviously the 4096-bit key is a very, very powerful key, and then this is going to become obsolete because quantum computing is going to become so powerful at decrypting these things. So since the RSA is going to become obsolete, 256-bit ECC will probably end up turning into a 10,000-bit ECC, which will end up being much, much more powerful than anything that RSA can achieve right now, and then it'll just get more and more sophisticated. There is this argument that's being made that encryption is going to go out the window and nobody's data is going to be private once quantum computing becomes very popular. But the concept here is that how many people can get a quantum computer? Not anybody anytime soon. It's probably these massive organizations like Google and Nivea or something like that. Nivea is a lotion company for women's cosmetics. Nvidia and Google and Intel and all these big tech companies are probably the only ones that actually have a quantum computer, and it's going to take a while before that quantum computer is something that is accessible to the average human being, which means that those companies, they may be able to decrypt all of your data. Yes, that's for sure, but it doesn't mean that they're going to do something with your data or they're going to start robbing you or something like that. I mean, for the most part, they already own all of your data anyway. So it's like, for me, it's like, this conspiracy theory of, yeah, once quantum computing comes out, encryption is going to go out the door and it's not going to matter anymore. It feels a little bit childish because it's just going to take, I feel like it's going to take at least a decade for quantum computing to become so easily accessible that the average human being can now go get access to a quantum computer, right? So we're going to visit various asymmetric encryption ciphers in the next room. For now, the important thing to note is that asymmetric encryption provides you with a public key that you share with everyone and a private key that you keep guarded and secret. So Alice and Bob are fictional characters commonly used in cryptography examples to represent two parties trying to communicate securely. Symmetric encryption is a method in which the same key is used for both encryption and decryption. This key must remain secure and never be disclosed to anyone except Alice and Bob. And an asymmetric is a method that uses two different keys, which is a public key for encryption and a private key for decryption. This is funny that Alice and Bob is like a new term that has been used here. A and B, right? A and B, get it? Okay, moving on. Should you trust DES, the data encryption standard? I mean, I would say nay, because it is very much out ever since 2000. No, not even 2000. I think it was like 1999 is when it became obsolete. When was AES adopted as the encryption standard? And that was 2001, right? Okay, cool. Very good. All right. Now let's talk about some basic mathematics. Hey. The building blocks of modern cryptography lie in mathematics. To demonstrate some basic algorithms, we will cover two mathematical operations. Don't worry, we're not going to go crazy here. I promise I will try to avoid all of the rabbit holes here. The XOR operation, the XOR, is a binary operation that is commonly used for encryption and decryption of data. XOR operates on binary data, also known as bits, and is based on the principle of the Boolean algebra. And the operation involves two bits, which is ones and zeros. So the result of the operation is 1 if the two bits are different, and 0 if they are the same, okay? And then you have the modulo operation, right? Not to be confused with Modelo, which is a beer. XOR operation, short for exclusive OR, is a logical operation in binary arithmetic. And we kind of talked about this in one of the previous videos, and I almost lost my mind because binary, for a second, I was like, oh my God. I literally, like, I was like, dude, I don't get this. And it goes to show you I'm not a mathematician. I'm not a math genius, right? And you don't have to be one to be successful in security. That's the other thing. So the XOR, exclusive OR, is a logical operation in binary arithmetic that plays a crucial role in various computing cryptographic applications. In binary, XOR compares two bits and then returns 1 if the bits are different and 0 if they are the same, as we can see here, right? The operation often represented by the symbol plus in a circle or this like upward arrow kind of a thing. So A and B would be our two different bits. If they are the same, right, it would be 0. If they are different, so 0 and 1 will return 1, 1 and 0 will return 1, and then 1 and 1 will return 0 because they are the same. Now, this is actually a very basic breakdown of binary. The one that we did in the last video, I almost lost my freaking mind, okay? But this one is very, very basic. It'll return 0 if they're the same. It'll return 1 if they're different. That's basically it. And since you only have two numbers to worry about, then you can see that there aren't very many variations to this, okay? What we're seeing here is something called the truth table, and it's a table that shows all of the possible outcomes. The XOR truth table states all 4 cases, so you can actually have 0 and 0, 0 and 1, 1 and 0, and then 1 and 1. Those are basically all of the cases that we could potentially have over here. Let's consider an example where we want to apply XOR to the binary numbers 1010 and 1100, okay? In this case, we perform the operation bit by bit. So if you have 1 and 1 equals 0, 0 and 1 equals 1, 1 and 0 equals 1, and 0, 0 equals 0, right? If they're the same, you get 0. If they're different, you get 1, resulting in 0, 1, 1, 0. So if you're comparing these two, right? So if you're comparing these two next to each other, 1 and 1 is 0, okay? Because they're the same. 0 and 1 are different, so you would get 1. And then 1 and 0 are different, so that would also be 1. And then 0 and 0 are the same, so you would get 0. Okay? Hopefully that made sense. You may be wondering how XOR can play a role in cryptography. It has several interesting properties that make it useful in cryptography and error detection. One key property is that applying XOR to a value with itself results in 0. Applying XOR to any value with 0 leaves it unchanged because it's the same, right? So A and A would be 0. A and 0 would be A, basically. That's what we can get, right? Because if it's A and A equals 0, then the binary value of these two is going to be 0. So A and 0, if you're comparing these two together, that means it's also A, right? Because A and A was, hopefully that makes sense, right? Additionally, XOR is commutative, meaning A plus B will equal to B plus A, right? So it could be essentially the reverse. And it's associative, which means A plus B plus C will be A plus B plus C, like that, right? Let's see how we can make use of this in cryptography. So we can demonstrate how Zor can be used as a basic symmetric encryption algorithm. Consider the binary values P and K, where P is the plaintext and K is the secret key. The ciphertext would be C, ciphertext, equals P plus K, okay? Now, if we know that C and K, if we know C and K, then we can recover P. We start with C plus K equals P plus K plus K, okay? Stick with me, okay? If we know C and K, so this is what we're looking for. We're looking for a P right here. If we know C and if we know K, then we're looking for P. We start with C plus K, so the cipher plus the key, okay, equals the plaintext plus the key plus the key. But we know that P plus K, so the plaintext and the key, plus the key equals the plaintext plus the key and the key, because Zor is associative, right? Furthermore, we know that K plus K equals 0 because they're the same. So P plus K equals P plus K equals P plus 0, which means that it's the same, P plus K, which equals to P. In other words, Zor served as a simple symmetric encryption algorithm. In practice, it's more complicated as we need a secret key as long as the plain text itself, which is obviously much longer than these things, and it ends up becoming really, really long data sets that have this plus that separate them. So hopefully this actually made sense, because I could just keep repeating this over and over and over again, but I would recommend you just rewatch that if you're interested in learning about Zor, binary encryption, so on and so forth. But that's the most basic way that we can think about it, right? So I'm not going to repeat this, because you could just replay it and just watch it over again. But if you go through it a few times, and if you're decent at puzzles, if you're decent at pattern recognition, then you'll be able to understand what just happened. But it can be confusing, especially when you like say it out loud and somebody's trying to explain something over, and then you're like, okay, my God, what the hell did you just say? All it sounds like is you're just saying P, K, and C, and P, and K, and P, and P, and 0, and P. It's like, that's all it sounds like you're saying, but there is a method to the madness, okay? We have the modulo operation, not to be confused with modello. Another mathematical operation we often encounter in cryptography is modulo, commonly written as the percentage or mod. You'll probably see that, or you've probably seen that. The modulo operator is x percentage y, is the remainder, where x is divided by y, and the remainder is what's left over, right? Hopefully you remember at least how to find remainders of something. So if we do 10 divided by 3, for example, we'll get 3 with a remainder of 1, because 9 divided by 3 would end up being 3. 10 divided by 3 would still be 3, and then you would have a remainder of 1. In our daily life calculations, we focus more on the result of division than on the remainder. The remainder plays a significant role in cryptography. You need to work with large numbers when solving some cryptography exercises. If your calculator fails, we suggest using a programming language such as Python. Python has a built-in integer type that can handle integers of arbitrary size and would automatically switch to large types as needed. Many other programming languages have dedicated libraries for big integers. If you prefer to do your math online, consider Wolfram Alpha. So let's consider a few examples. 25 divided by 5, right? That's basically what this is. It would be 0, because 25 divided by 5 is 5, and there is no remainder left, so that's what we would get. 23 divided by 6 would technically leave us with 5, because 3 times 6 would be 18, and then 23 minus 18 would end up giving us a remainder of 5, right? That's what we basically get over here. That's how this whole thing works, really. 23 divided by 7 would be 2. So 3 times 7 is 21. 23 minus 21 would give you 2. So that would be the remainder which is 2. An important thing to remember about modulo is that it's not reversible. If we are given the equation of x to this 5 right here, and you have a remainder of 4, there could be an infinite values of x, because you could get a variety of different operations that would yield you with a remainder of 4. So the modulo operation always returns a non-negative result less than the divisor, which means that for any integer and a and positive integer n, the result will always be n divided by n, will always have the range between 0 or n minus 1, which is this. So this is n right here. So this would be n. So this would be n minus 1 in this particular case. So the result will always be less than this, because it needs to be less than what is being divided by. The divisor, I guess, is the technical term, right? So if it's 25 divided by 5, your remainder would be 0, because that's actually giving you an exact division, and that's perfectly fine. If it's 23 divided by 6, the remainder is 5, which is less than 6. In this case, the remainder is 2, which is less than 7. So the result will always be less than the divisor, because otherwise it would be perfectly 0, or it would give you some kind of a other type of response. It will never be negative, right? It's always going to be at least 1 to the number of this. So 1 to 6 in this particular case, 1 to 5 in this case, so on. You get it, right? So that's basically what we got. So now we got to do 1001 and then 1010, right? So what we're trying to do is find the binary response to this. So 1 and 1 are the same, so it would be what? It would be 0. And then 0 and 0 are the same, so that would also be 0. And then 0 and 1 are different, so that would be 1. And then 1 and 0 are different, that would be 1. So you press enter, and we're good here. Now, what is this? So this, we actually need to go and do some kind of an operation here, and we'll use the website that we just got, this Wolfram website. So enter what you want to calculate or know about. And so we want to, I'm guessing if I just copy and paste this, it'll know what we're trying to do. So let's copy it and paste it and see if it'll actually understand what I'm trying to do here. Oh, 3565. So that's, I think it understands exactly what we're trying to do, and we're just trying to get the remainder. So it would be 3565. And let's see. Okay, cool. That did work. And 60 by 12, we should actually be able to do this in our mind. So if it's 4 times 12, it'll be 48. If it's 5 times 12, it'll actually end up being 60, which means that there is no remainder here. This is actually perfectly divisible. So we can do 0, and that would be our response. Perfect. Excellent. And that's it. That's literally it for this exercise. So let's see what our summary is, and then we will do a couple of final notes, and then you can go home. You can go to recess. So in this episode, you learned some of the basics of cryptography. We learned why it's so important and some of the problems that it actually solves. We also learned about the Caesar cipher and the various encryptions, which is symmetric and asymmetric encryptions. And we're going to be going deeper into these concepts as we progress in our cryptography module of the CySec101 series. So there's no final question here. We're just going to click complete, and then we'll be done. And that's basically it for today. So if you found this video useful, I do encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out. And I very much encourage you to go check out all of the other videos that are available on this channel. There's a lot of stuff, and there's stuff constantly coming out. And I have learned how to, I kind of knew how to do this, but the thumbnails is something that I get a lot of response about lately, because if you go to the very, very beginning, the videos that were uploaded at the beginning of the channel, the thumbnails were so freaking basic and elementary, we can call them, and they've just become cooler. I feel like I just like these thumbnails so much. I'm falling in love with the thumbnails, and it's so much fun just to come up with the thumbnail ideas and try to have these AI emulators create them and try to keep it somehow along the same lines of what the actual content of the video is. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of great stuff that's on the channel, and there's constantly new stuff coming out. And if you have questions, then drop it in the comment section. I'll respond to your comments in the comment section. If it's a really good question, then I'll go ahead and create a video in response. And if it's a really big question, like, hey, can you do a beginner series on cybersecurity? Then we end up with a playlist called the CySec101 playlist. Shout out Darnell Knight. And that's basically it for this one. So make sure that you like, subscribe, turn on notification bell, and of course, drop a comment. You can ask your questions, or you could just say thank you if you want to. And another way to say thank you would be to support this channel by joining the Hackaholics Anonymous community, which is the premier channel for security professionals and hackers. And we have 4 tiers: the supporter, agent, guardian, and the master. And each tier will get their own Discord server and early access to the content. But the agent, guardian, and master levels will get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations that I create for them, and live streams with me every single month, plus much more. And you can join by simply clicking the link in the description below, or you can go to our homepage and click the join button, or you can go to youtube.com/@HankHacksHackers/join, and you'll be able to join Hackaholics Anonymous. If you do join, I look very forward to seeing you in the Discord servers. If you don't join, then at the very least, I hope I see you in the comment section, and I hope I see you as a subscriber of our community. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker/protector. No one else loves you. Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. And I'll see you in the next video later.